to Gaza. I had a live stream, Scott, not a long time ago, a few days ago, and it was a round table with Larry Johnson and Pepe Escobar. And as we were going through the commentary of the current events, I said, which actually Pepe said, that the attack on Iran was in fact an attack on BRICS. And as of course, I'm not an expert, but I look at the map today and I said to myself, all right, so let's look at the countries that are at this point already part of BRICS. So as we know, it's Brazil, it's Russia, it's India, it's China, it's South Africa, and we also have Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates. So here I was thinking, so we're going to use Ukraine to turn it against Russia. We're going to use Taiwan and Philippines to turn against China. We're going to use Israel to turn against Iran, and very soon Argentina will create absolute madness. I mean, not the country, not the people, but certain people and government. And this will be turned against the South America, especially Brazil. Am I wrong here with my thinking?
No, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there's meetings in the National Security Council of the United States that talk about how do we stabilize the world. See, from the American perspective, the world's gone crazy. It's out of control. Why doesn't the world understand? We have the rules-based international order. It works. As long as everybody's willing to do what we tell them to do, we're happy, and you should be happy too. Because if America's happy, we're the exceptional nation. We're indispensable. You can't live without us, guys. So why are you trying to live without us? See, we get angry when the world says, well, we don't like your rules. We don't want to play your game. We're walking away. So we're left in a field, in a stadium that we built, holding a ball that nobody wants to play the game with. So we need to bring them back in. And we can't do it by speaking sense, because America no longer knows how to speak common sense. We gave up on diplomacy a long, long time ago. And today, I mean, the State Department is merely the public relations, extension of the Department of Defense, or the other tools of coercion that we use. The Department of Treasury. I mean, what was Blinken doing in China? He wasn't over there trying to make peace. He was saying either do it our way or we're going to financially sanction you. We threaten. And we use that all over again. That's why we have aircraft battle groups. They're not there to bring peace. They're there to scare people, to intimidate people, to say America over the shore has an aircraft carrier full of planes that could come in and bomb you into the Stone Age if you don't do what we want you to do. And then the CIA's job is literally to go in and stir up trouble, to weaken adversaries and promote us. So there's no doubt in my mind that we are working hand in glove with Mali and Argentina to create instability in the South American continent, particularly targeting, not just Brazil, although that's the biggest one. The B in BRICS is Brazil. Ecuador wants to join. We can't let that happen. So we got to bring down Ecuador. God forbid the Chileans ever decide that they want to join BRICS too. We got to bring down Chile. No, that's what we do. Colombia. We don't ever help people. Let's look at Africa. South Africa is, of course, the S in BRICS. And they're a big player. But, the African continent, I think they're just about any economist worth his or her salt says that the African continent is the continent of future growth. I mean, the populations alone dictate that that's where there's going to be the greatest potential for growth. Now, Africa has been dominated in the past couple centuries by colonialism, European-driven colonialism, primarily. Now, we got rid of European colonialism, but we didn't. For instance, the French have a huge presence in Africa, and a post-colonial presence that's defined by French control of the economy. There's an African franc that the French have imposed to ensure that they are in charge of monetary policy of, nearly not half, but maybe a third of Africa. security is linked to the French military, now to the American military. Politically, the French own all the politicians, post-colonial politicians, but not anymore. They one by one, they've just decided we don't want to play that game anymore. And they're declaring independence of France. It's done, generally speaking, through a military coup, but not exclusively so. We just saw Senegal hold democratic elections, ousting the pro-French president, bringing in somebody who's more aligned with the alliance of Sahel states. That's Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. They declared independence by having coups that kicked out the French and invited in the Russians. And it's not, but see, the Russians are the security face of it. They also bring in the Chinese through the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. The Chinese are in there economically, and some amazing things are happening. To give you an example, in Niger, they have oil. They have the ability to produce oil, but the French were never really keen on letting them fully develop this capability. The Chinese came in and talked about building a pipeline connecting Niger to Benin, which has a port that the oil could be exported, but the French were against it. ECOWAS threatened sanctions, the United States threatened sanctions, but Niger did it. And today, talking about exporting 110,000 barrels a day. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing, but for an impoverished nation like Niger to suddenly have an infusion of, oil money, the things that they can do, they're going to start taking care of their people in a way that they never were able to when the French were in control. Mali, a lot of people don't realize that Mali was suppressed and made unstable because there's a people called the Tuareg, and I'm getting very simple here, but they're a sort of a nomadic people of the Saharan desert in the Sahel, and they know no national boundaries, meaning that the Tuareg are everywhere. A lot of Tuareg in Mali, a lot of Tuareg in Niger. Well, there are uranium mines in northern Niger that the French got their uranium from for their nuclear program. They paid pennies to the dollar of what they should have paid. Now Niger said you have to pay us full price. France didn't want to do that, but that's part of the economic revival of Niger. But the French, in order to maintain control over this area, told the Tuareg, the sort of people wanted independence, that they could go to Mali and take over a significant part of Mali, including a major city that became their de facto capital, and that could be their own independent area. And don't worry, we won't let anything happen. And they wouldn't let the Mali government recapture it. They tied the Mali government's hands. The Mali government's going, that's our sovereign territory. You can't do that. You can't come in and dictate solutions like this. And so the French were kicked out. The Russians came in. First is Wagner. Now they call themselves the Africa Corps. One of the first things that Wagner did is recapture that city for the Mali government, allowed Mali to regain sovereign control of its territory. Now, everybody's screaming, oh, Wagner commits war crimes and atrocities. No, they don't. It's a tough fight against insurgents. But for first time, the Mali government is able to say, we control our country and we're bringing stability into our country. And now that you have a stable Niger that's bringing in money that now can bring the services to these nomadic people and make them say, hey, it's a good thing to be aligned with this government now, the level of violence is dropping. Support for jihadist groups is dissipating. The Russians and the Chinese actually have a plan that says, by promoting your independence and your economic health, you become more stable and secure, and you become better business partners for us who aren't seeking permanent war. We want permanent peace. Burkina Faso, their upstart captain of a junta leader went to St. Petersburg last year and met with Vladimir Putin. It was a pretty curious meeting because he doesn't shake hands with anybody. His whole thing is a fist bump. Vladimir Putin came out and he shook his hand, sign of respect. But he sat there, and I remember watching this. He said, we need a nuclear reactor. And I'm like, good God, why would you come and tell Vladimir Putin you need a nuclear reactor? That's pretty ambitious of you. And the Russians, Vladimir said, we'll think about it. And the Russians came back and said, yep, we're going to build you a nuclear reactor. Russia's going to build a nuclear reactor in Burkina Faso. Why? Well, because if you build this nuclear reactor, you now can electrify parts of Burkina Faso that electricity never touched. And when you start to electrify things, amazing things happen. Life springs forward. it's going to come to life. They're going to become independent. They're going to build a middle class. All those things we claim you need for a viable democracy, which we were denying them. We were there. America, France were there for decades, and we denied them this. We brought nothing but poverty, wars, destruction. In a 3-year span, 3 years, Russia and China have turned that entire area around. Africa is going to become the engine of BRICS. The United States can't handle that. That's a direct threat to us. But we've been sort of pushed from that area. But watch, we're going to make problems. Look at Morocco. See what we do in Morocco. We're going to cause a lot of problems with Morocco vis-a-vis Algeria, because Algeria is gravitating towards the Alliance of Sahel states. Chad's going to be a next battleground, because Chad has an election coming up, and they're probably going to elect a guy that's going to say, France, you take a hike, the final French bastion in the Sahel, gone. And they're looking over at the Russians and the Chinese and Mali and Niger and all. They're saying that's what we want. Senegal could join. Benin's already leaning that direction. But the United States will, of course, have to stir up trouble. The same thing with, look at India, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. The Indians, though, aren't jumping on the BRICS bandwagon, because we are keep trying to pull them away. We keep saying, no, you're part of the West. And so India is trying to straddle the fence. India needs to be careful, because if they keep playing this game too long, India is like, we're not into expanding BRICS, because we think that everything will fall under Chinese control. Well, the Russians are in charge this year, India, and Russia is going to hold a BRICS summit where they're talking about expanding. And BRICS may become, instead of BRICS with an I, just BRICS, because this might tell the Indians, go. If you want to go with the West, go. But that's like buying a ticket on the Titanic, knowing it's going to hit an iceberg. But if that's what you want to do it. You'll come back. Everybody's coming back. The whole world's coming to BRICS, because BRICS is the future. Go ahead.
Then the I will be for Iran.
Well, Iran's already there. They're a member. Saudi Arabia is a member, and that's what the whole attack on Iran was about. Was crying. The Israelis were behind this. The United States sort of backed out there at the last second. We were like, we don't really want this war because it's a stupid war. But the Israelis and the Indians. This is where the Indians. I don't understand them today. There was a meeting where I heard an Indian. Official intellectual say, the India Middle East economic corridor is still very much one of our top priorities, including working with Israel. I'm like, are you really that brain dead? Israel's finished. What's going on in Gaza has destroyed Israel, the credibility. There may be an indictment this week from the International Criminal Court of Netanyahu, Gallant, and the chief of staff. No nation survives this. Israel is on the way out, and yet you're saying that you want something that is predicated upon Israel normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia. That was the purpose of the attack on Iran, to create that breach, to get Saudi Arabia and Iran to start re-examining each other as enemies, as regional opponents, instead of people working together under the umbrella of BRICS to create a system of peace and harmony, economic co-prosperity. Fortunately, the Iranians and the Saudis went, hey, we're not going backwards, okay? Let's get this thing over with, and let's get to Kazan in October and talk about how we're going to turn the world into this wonderful thing where our oil actually enriches us together. But India, they're sort of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. They very much want to be China. They wish they were the global powerhouse that China is, but they're not going to be, and they're never going to be. They have ambitious programs of, a $24 trillion GDP down the road, but you're not going to do that by yourself, India, and you're not going to do it with the West. The West is a giant anchor around your neck, holding you back. When America says we're here for you, India, they're not here for India. They're here to use India to bring down BRICS. That's the whole idea, to convert India into a giant poison pill to bring down BRICS. The Indians don't get it. They think that they can play both games. They're not powerful enough to do that. They don't have enough economic reach. The Indian influence on global supply chains is nowhere near what China is. And India has misconstrued what China has done. They say China is surrounding us. No, China's just doing business with the world. Why did India never think the United States was surrounding it? Because the United States has surrounded it. And the United States has hostile intent against India. Because if India doesn't do what we want, we sanction them. We've already threatened them with sanctions. Why do the Indians think we're their friends? We're not. We're just here to use you, India. And that's the reality. So this attack against Iran was definitely an attack against BRICS and part and parcel of a grand American strategy of creating unrest around the world. But the thing is, as we speak, more and more nations are putting applications into BRICS. That's that's the team that the world is gravitating to. And the United States again is looking at an empty stadium, and nobody wants to play ball with us anymore.
So Scott, in this I put my hope that there will be more countries who will be pro-economic growth and peace and stability than pro-war. What you just said. In that I put my hope.
Yeah, me too. And again, this is one of the main reasons why, I used to be, I mean, again, I want to be again in the future. I wish I was in a situation where I never had to say Vladimir Putin's name, that I was instead saying the name of an American president, that I would say, President, Robertson, that the world should be looking to President Robertson for leadership. President Robertson has a plan. Robinson's plan is talking about creating wealth and opportunity, shared responsibility. President Robinson wants to breathe relevance in the United Nations. President Robinson don't exist and is never going to exist in the near future because America is fundamentally broke, and all we give the world now is Biden or Trump, with an RFK Jr. down there in the middle that some people would have found attractive, except he is all for genocide in Gaza. So he's the same. He's the same as everybody. He doesn't have a sound Chinese policy. He's saying the right things about Russia, but does he really believe it? Because when you dig deep into him, you find out there's a lot of resentment towards Russia too, because at the end of the day, he's an American president. And an American president is about maintaining America's dominance of the world. American presidents can't become president if they don't believe in American dominance, because the American people are programmed only to accept a dominant America. The second you come in and start speaking common sense, saying we have to learn to live in a world as equals, Americans don't want to be the equal of anybody. We're the exceptional nation. Manifest destiny. God has made us they touched us to control the world. That's why we expanded across the continent. That's why we expanded across the Pacific. That's why we continue to do our missionary work in the world today, because God has made us this way. And God we trust. We're supposed not to have a state-sponsored church, but America is a state-sponsored church in its own right. I mean, the control of Christian evangelicals, the control of Zionists that are linked to Christian evangelicals is real. And so this is why I keep using Putin's name, not because they're paying me to do it, not because I hate my country, but I love peace. I love the concept of peace. I love the notion of people not waking up going to war. And there's one leader out there, and I look at him and I go, damn it, he wants peace. He does want peace. He wants peace and co-prosperity. And all you have to do is look at what he did with Chechnya. I wish more people would study the Chechen conflict, its roots, and the solutions. Vladimir Putin sitting down with Ahmed Kadyrov and how they struggled to come up with this scheme that ended this war that was so horrible, and brought peace and prosperity. Is Chechnya perfect? There's no such thing as a perfect place. But when you look at the disparity between what Chechnya was in 2002, where the city of Grozny looked like Stalingrad, and where it is today, where the city of Grozny is a modern, vibrant place where Russians and Chechens live together in peace and harmony. I've traveled throughout Chechnya, and I've gone there, and I see nothing but people who are happy to be part of the Russian Federation, but proud of being Chechens, meaning that they never surrendered anything about who they are. They never surrendered their religion. They never surrendered their language. They never surrendered their cultural identity. That's their proud, but they're part of this broader scheme because it brings them peace and economic prosperity. And that the guy who did it, one of two. It was Vladimir Putin and Ahmad Kadyrov. Ahmad Kadyrov is dead. Unfortunately, he was assassinated by people who didn't believe in this concept of peace. He was replaced by his son Ramzan Kadyrov, who continued his father's tradition. And this is why Chechnya is the way it is. Are the people going to sit here and poke holes in this and say this, that, and the other thing? Sure, they are. But as I said about Vladimir Putin and trying to drag Russia out of the decade of the 1990s, you don't go from hell to heaven instantly. You know, there's a lot of culling of the sinners that has to take place. In Chechnya, there's still culling of the sinners that have to take place. There's still things that are happening. You know, there are still outbreaks of violence in parts of Chechnya as people continue to hold out against this vision of peace. But overall, Chechnya is a nation that works for the Chechen people. It works for the Russian people. And frankly speaking, at the end of the day, isn't that all that matters? The fact that Chechnya doesn't work for America, it doesn't work for Europe, it's not their problem. They don't care. They're not losing any sleep that the European Union is not going to be inviting them in anytime soon, or that the United States isn't going to open up a Chechen American friendship society. The Chechens don't care. Do they want to be friends with America? Look at their treatment of me. They've treated me with nothing but respect and love. Why? Because I show them respect and love. And when you show that to the Chechen people, they respond in kind. You treat them with respect, they treat you with respect. They don't hate Americans. They don't hate America. They don't like the American government. But can you blame them? You know, because they know the truth of what the CIA was trying to do in the 1990s and the 2000s. They know what the CIA was doing in terms of bringing these outside jihadists into Chechnya. And they know the price they paid in terms of lives lost, villages, children buried. Like I said before, the Russian women today cry when they talk about Chechen mothers burying their children, and Chechen mothers cry about Russian women burying their children because it's a shared pain. They love each other. They are the same in terms of what they believe in. And the guy who made that possible is Vladimir Putin. So yeah, I'll say his name a lot. And until somebody can come up with a better name to say, I'll keep saying his name. Not because I've been bought and paid for, but because he's the only one out there with a viable plan of peace. Macron doesn't have one. You know, Rishi Sunak doesn't have one. Justin Trudeau certainly doesn't have one. Schultz in Germany doesn't have one. Biden doesn't have one. Trump doesn't have one. Kennedy doesn't have one. What name do you want me to say? All those people out there saying, stop, you're a Putin, this, that, and the other. Give me another name. Give me another program. Give me something that I can hold on to, and I'll promote that. But until you do, and it isn't out there, the only one on the global stage is Vladimir Putin. And it's not a bad plan. You know, fact is, I don't mind promoting the Russian plan because at the end of the day, I personally believe that it doesn't result in harm to America. Because an American defeat in Ukraine doesn't bring about the end of America. It just brings about the end of irresponsible military adventurism that was solely designed to hurt Russia and the Ukrainian people and Europe and the world, but not America.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, the belt. I think both Macron and Trudeau, they have the rainbow belt.
They have the what?
Rainbow belt.
The rainbow belt. Well, as an American, I'm supposed to celebrate all color belts. So if you want to wear a rainbow belt, wear it. Don't wear it in Chechnya, though, because they don't like it. And don't wear it in Russia because they don't like it. And if you can't respect that, then don't go there. Wear it in America. We like it, apparently. So, rainbow belt away.